I just wanted to go ahead and review some basic graphing techniques tonight here. And this is the graph paper that I've sent everybody, and it's in your Angel classroom. So I'm going to start out here with an equation in what is called standard form, or your book calls it general form. And we'll get to the formula sheet here in a second as well. So we're going to go ahead and take the equation 3x minus 5y equals 6. And we are going to go ahead and graph the equation of this line. Now you should recognize in general or standard form, this is ax plus by equals c form, where a, b, and c are non-fractional, non-decimal numbers, and they always like to keep this a number positive. So I'm going to make a little note here, since there's no one joining me here tonight, just to go ahead and do that. And the easiest way to graph a line, and most of you know this, is all you need to do is get 2 points. So in this form, I think what's called the intercept method is best. So in order to get the x-intercept, and we're going to see this on the formula sheet as well, we are going to let y be 0 and solve for x. So if we plug 0 in for y, we end up with negative 5 times 0 is 0. That leaves us with 3x equals 6, and dividing both sides by 3, x will be equal to 2. So if I go up top here, my ordered pair column here, I'm just going to put when y is 0, x is 2, and we can come over here very nicely, plot that point on our graph. Okay. Now, we need one more point because, of course, if we're going to make a line, it takes at least 2 points to tango. So we'll go ahead and put the y-intercept in, and you will see on the handout coming up that to get the y-intercept, we're going to let x be 0, and we're going to solve for y. So what happens here is 3 times 0 goes out is 0, and I'm going to be left with a minus 5y equals 6. And then divide both sides by minus 5. And so when x is 0, y will be negative 6/5. Now that's kind of hard to graph in that form, so let's go ahead and change that into a mixed number. Dividing bottom end to top, we get negative 1 with 1 left over, 1/5. So when x is 0, the y-intercept, where the line will cross y, is negative 1 and 1/5. So let's plot that point next here. So I'm just going to go down a little below 1. Yes, you can do fractions on here. I know you all love those things. And we will put our second dot there. That looks pretty close to me, close enough for government work. And I'll go ahead and get my line tool here, and we will make a beautiful line out of this here. Let me just extend this a little, going this way. And of course, we have a line. We have to put arrows on there. And there is our first equation in standard form. And we're going to get into a lot of different things in this chat here, and I hope some others join me tonight. If not, I will carry on alone. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this example, and I'm going to pull up another handout here real quick. That's the one with the formulas I mentioned earlier. So stand by. It always takes me a few seconds here to load different handouts and representations and stuff, but it does work pretty well here. It's gotten a little bit better over the years, as a matter of fact. And I have so many handouts, sometimes it takes me a second to find them. I think this is it. So here is the handout that you will be given when you take your second test. All the learning labs know to give you guys this, and gals. And also you will be given graph paper like the one I just graphed on a few minutes ago. I think there's 4 graphs on each one that I sent you at the beginning of this chapter. So you can see that we've covered this first box here. we did an equation in what is called standard, or your book will call it the general form. Different books call this one different things, but as long as you know the format here. And notice, as I did in that first example, I went ahead and I told you the easiest way to graph in this form is to use the intercept method. Now, you have to be real careful in Math Excel. If they want you to graph a line in this form and they say use the intercepts and you use any other point, then it's going to mark it wrong. All right, so I wanted to make that crystal clear too. So I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to go through each and every box here tonight and just make a quick rundown of all the different ways to graph. And we might even, if I have time, get into writing equations when it comes to lines. That's one of the toughest concepts is section 3.5. We just finished that in my lecture classes yesterday, and we're going to work on it some more tomorrow. I think that's one of the most missed things on this next test is writing equations of lines. All right. Now, we're going to look at what's called the Slope-Intercept Form next. So I'm going to go ahead and get my graph paper back out here and see if I can be a little quicker this time. Loading this. So I'll go ahead and clear this slide, and voila, here comes the more graph paper. All right, so slope-intercept form is, let's say we were given an equation in standard form, and you're going to see this problem on the test too. Let's say if I gave you 2x minus 5y equals 10. Now, we could quickly go ahead and graph this line as well using the intercept method. And I'm going to show you kind of how a few things work here. So I'll do this example one more time. I'll go ahead and say, let's find the x-intercept first by letting y be 0 and solving for x. And as you will see, when y is 0 in this equation, x is 5. And to get the y-intercept, we're going to let x be 0, just like we did in the last one, and solve for y. So 2 times 0 is 0, so this equation, plugging in 0 for x, will leave us negative 5y equals 10. And we'll divide by negative 5, and y will be negative 2. So when x is 0, y is negative 2. So let's plot those 2 points here, and I'll pick a different color. Get the old colors out here on the whiteboard, and we'll put a nice green dot on 5, 0, and a nice green dot here on 0, 2. Get the line tool out, and we will make a nice green line here. And of course, we always like to put the arrows on our line. So again, this form right here is what's called standard form, AX plus BY equals C. Now I wanted to go ahead and show you all that you can take an equation in standard form, and I'll just go ahead and bring that up here, the one we just have the green line on. And if you look in your formula sheet, that second box, we are now going to change from standard form into slope-intercept form, and that is y equals mx plus b. And we're going to talk about graphing in that form and do a graph or two there. So notice the middle box says in order to change from one to the other, we need to solve the equation for y. So I'm going to take this equation in standard form, and I want to get y by itself, so I'm going to take this 2x and move it by subtracting it from both sides. That will leave me with negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 10. Now, dividing each item by negative 5, so we can get y, we will end up with y equals positive 2/5 x minus 2. Watching our signs there, negative divided by negative positive 2/5, positive divided by negative, negative 2. Now, in the slope-intercept form, the b number that comes after x, and I'm going to come over here and refer to it, is called the y-intercept. So that number tells us where the line crosses y. If you've been studying and looking at your software, you know the m number is what's called the slope, and hopefully you found, looking at the software and doing the homework, that slope means rise over run. I'm going to put that here when I solve this. So I'm going to give you some real detailed notes here on how to graph in slope-intercept form. Now here we go. This is super detailed, so follow along. I'm going to put a little thing here on the y-intercept. Start here, and then go here when it comes to the slope. Now what does that mean, Young? Well, if I go back up to my green line, which I'm now going to overlap in red, I would start, if I were graphing in the slope-intercept form, at negative 2. That number tells me where the line's going to cross y. Now, rise over run, remember, rise is the change of direction on y. And if it's positive, you go up. If it's negative, you go down. The run is the change on x. If you go right positive, left negative. All right, so if you've got a rise of positive 2, and I'm just going to kind of put a little arrow in red here, we would go 2 from this point we started at, up 2, and then, of course, we would go right 5. Thusly named rise over run. And see, that's how you get your 2 points when you graph in slope-intercept form. And of course, you can draw your line through it again, and you got your 2 points. But if you really wanted to go crazy and impress your friends at parties and stuff, you could keep doing this. You could keep going rise 2, run 5. And you could put another point up here. You see, you can keep doing that forever and ever and ever to infinity and beyond, Buzz Lightyear. All right, so I think the slope-intercept form is the absolute best form because it tells you more information. So let's clear this slide here, and we'll continue graphing in this newfound form here. All right, next example. Let's take y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. All right, now if we want to graph this equation in slope-intercept form, we are going to start at the y-intercept, which is 4. So watch the dot up top there. So this number right here tells me where the line is going to cross the y-axis, and it always gives you 1 point. And then if you want to label the slope here, we're going to go ahead and say rise over run. So now, Young, where do I put the negative? Where do I put the negative? My lecture classes, I said, well, it doesn't matter. You can put the negative on the 2, or you can put the negative on the 3, but you can only put one negative, because if you have 2 of them, it makes the number positive. So let's do it first with the negative on the 2. So that would mean we would go down 2, and I'll just make a little notation here, if that 2 was negative, and right 3. And you can see where the line's going to go. Those 2 points you connect it. Now, what if you wanted to put the negative on the 3? Well, then you would go up a positive 2 direction on y. And then if you put the negative on the 3, you'd have to go this way to get negative 2/3. All right? But notice no matter which way I go, how that thing lines up nicely for me. I usually like to just put the negative on the top number myself when I do it. And then let's get our line tool out here like you'll do in Math Excel. Your line tool is a little nicer than mine in Wimba here, but I have learned to do this pretty well over the years. You teach online as many years as me, or just teaching period as many years as me, you will get good at it too. So there is a equation in slope-intercept form. All right, let's do one more. I like these graphs like this. I could do a whole bunch of them in one sitting here, one shot. Now, some of my lecture students had some trouble with problems like this, that they just say, give you y equals plain old, let's say, 5x. Okay? Now, notice here, they don't give you a y-intercept, but you can always add that. You can say, well, why don't we just 5x plus 0? See, because if you add 0 to anything, it does not change the meaning. Okay, so we know to go up here and start at the origin. But the slope is not a fraction. And you can also, if it's not 1, well, you can make it 1. And then we can say, all right, we would just go ahead and put rise over run there, which again is the change in y over the change in x. So we'll just go up 5, and I'll just go ahead, let's pick a color I haven't used here yet. Here's a funky purple color. And we will go up 5 over 1, and voila, there is our second point. Get the point? All right, so anyway, go ahead and connect the points with our line tool here, and we'll make a pretty line here again. So we're using all kinds of different colors here. It's a great Wednesday night here in Wimba. And for those that couldn't make it to the chat, I'm sorry. I hope you get something out of this here in addition to your Math Excel videos and PowerPoint presentations and lecture notes and all the things you guys have. You have an arsenal of stuff here if you use it right in the online courses. And smart thinking, and of course you can always go see live tutors or jump online with me some other time.